Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Heart Leader podcast where heart and mind align. I am your host, Amber, and I am here today with co-host Austin. And we're going to talk about transparency in relationships to wrap up this month of discussion of transparency. And we are going to be fully and completely transparent about our relationship and how transparency plays a key part in building a really deep bond and connection. And when we started out, we did not start out in a romantic partnership at all. We actually started out as a mentorship connection that grew into a friendship that eventually led into a romantic partnership. So we had transparency at so many different levels. And the transparency that you show at each of those is very different, but it builds to the next and to the next. And we often get questions about, okay, so what does that look like? And how does that build an actual relationship upon itself? And how is it a cornerstone to anything? And so we wanted to talk about that and just be completely honest and authentic and share from our perspective how that really helps our connection grow and where we're at with it and how we anticipate it will help us in the future. So first, I just really appreciate your willingness as a partner to be open to things like this, because I know it takes a lot to be willing to, everybody always says what happens behind closed doors stays behind closed doors. And I heard that so much in my life. And, you get with people and you can tell that what they put on when they're around people may not necessarily be the relationship or the connection they have when they go home. And we hear a lot, and it is true for us. We are who we are wherever we show up, because our connection and our bond has been forged out of always being willing to talk about anything and everything, because we can't have a deep, authentic connection if we hide things from each other.
Right.
And so for me, as my partner in every sense of the word, on every level, which you are, your willingness to show others that side of us, it means everything to me. So I do appreciate that.
Thank you, love. Feelings very mutual. I feel like this is an area where I've had an immense amount of growth in the last few years. Transparency is tough because in many ways it feels like a relative term. My understanding of transparency is vastly shifted as I have. It's evolved as I have. And it really stems, and I feel like this is maybe a great place for us to start, is that it really stems from the self. I was only willing to be transparent with those around me, including you, as much as I was willing to be transparent with myself. And there was a lot that I was not willing to be transparent with. It was just, again, and I know we've talked about this in other podcasts, that just I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to see myself. I wasn't ready to accept myself. And so that's a key aspect of self-love, is transparency, is being willing to accept myself for who I am, how I am, knowing that it's not a bad thing. If there's something I don't like, that's not bad. It can be adjusted. And so I just wasn't ready to not only receive that, but I wasn't ready to put in the work either, or the effort, I guess, better term. Which is, I feel like, where you came in as the mentor to help me immensely, to break down the bridges within myself that I had not the bridges, break down the walls that I had put up, and help me build a bridge. Yeah.
This episode of the Heart Leader podcast was brought to you by Stephen Douglas. Stephen Douglas is one of the nation's leading boutique search and interim resources firms. and has been recognized as a leader in identifying and providing access to top talent for clients since 1984. Whether it's a company preparing to go to the next level or a candidate looking for better opportunities, Stephen Douglas keeps the focus on the needs of the people they serve. They specialize in connecting the right talent to a company's needs, while also understanding what the market demands. To learn more about this amazing organization, visit them at stephendouglas.com. And I feel like it's important that, at the time when we met, one of the things that struck me very much about you was that you were open for anything. Like, you were very willing to be open-minded and consider any possibility outside of yourself. But the moment it was about you and the internal exploration of you, there were moments when it scared you to think of what you could be capable of. And we would reach an impasse sometimes where I was like, well, if you're not able to go into that part of yourself, it's okay. But that might mean that I'm not the right mentor for you. And this might be where our journey ends. And at times that then would prompt you to be like, no, I'm not willing to not have that connection, because I can tell that this is taking us deeper and helping me see things about myself. So it wasn't about me, but it was about what my presence was invoking within you to help you see. And so that would be like a catalyst. And then that would be reciprocated throughout as we became friends. There would be times when it's like, okay, here's where I'm at, and you would reciprocate in transparency, like, hey, I'm noticing this about myself within me. I'm not being honest with myself. We'll go to that one. Like, you would notice where you weren't being honest with yourself about certain things, like maybe what you're eating. You would think, oh, I could have this every now and then, and it's not causing an issue. But the more you were honest with yourself and you noticed the impacts it was having on your body, like that when you would eat rice, you'd have a stuffy nose. Mm-hmm. I would then notice with myself, oh, wait, I thought if I had a little bit of gluten, even though I knew gluten caused me problems, but I could have a little bit of gluten. So I wasn't being honest with myself. So you being willing to be transparent with yourself and say, all right, no, this absolutely isn't working with me. And I just have to be honest with myself. And then being transparent with me about that caused me to go, yeah, I'm not being honest with myself either, or transparent with what this is doing to me. So then I need to take a step back. And so we started through that willingness to be honest and transparent with each other, even on the smallest little thing. It prompted our own internal growth, not a dependency. I wasn't dependent on you for my betterment, but I was enhanced by you for my betterment.
Love that. It's very critical differentiation, because it is easy to say, well, if we were partners and helping each other out, although it's a positive thing, were we creating dependency, and was that in turn just something outside of ourselves that we were directing in one area? And I would say no. I think that's because the way you just presented that is exactly why it's not an external dependency. What we were doing was life-changing for me in many ways, because I had not seen that. I feel like there was a natural desire to want to be transparent, not only with those around me, but with myself. But I honestly just didn't know how. And so being able to see it within you and have you share, then I got to see a real life practical example. It sparked more out of me to be like, well, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. Yeah. And then that kind of built on each other. And so to your point, it wasn't a dependency, it was an enhancement. It was a mirror in reality. And so that external it wasn't, we weren't dependent on it, because a mirror is not, it was a mirror for transparency through each other. And the beauty of it was that it was in the foundation of love. And that love was unconditional, it was non-judgmental, which are two very, very important aspects of transparency, because it's no wonder so many people don't desire to be transparent, because they don't feel like they will be loved if they are transparent. They will feel like they will be judged if they are fully themselves. And so I know those are two things I struggled with. I felt like, hey, if I'm going to be myself, because I did at a younger age, I put myself out there exactly who I was, and I wasn't received in the way that I would have liked to. Whether it was around friends or around relationships growing up, I just was received very differently. And, of course, I have to be willing to take responsibility that my communication may not be exactly where, I've spent a lot of time on communication, and in many ways it's revealed that I could definitely communicate things better. And so I'll absolutely take responsibility for that through the years. But it still doesn't negate the feeling I had that the intention was to be authentic. And when it wasn't received, every single time it wasn't received, I felt like I needed to put another block on that wall and build it higher and higher and higher and higher. And that was a struggle. So by the time I actually met you, my wall was very, very high. Again, I was willing. I loved learning about things outside of myself, but when it came to actually getting to know me, and probably with some of my guy friends, I had a little bit lower wall, but due to my experiences with different female relationships, whether it was friend or relationship wise, I was very guarded.
And for me, it was okay, because I understood where you were coming from, even though you didn't tell me directly. There were indirect signs that were there. And so it always has to start from one side.
Yeah.
One has to be willing to be transparent in a loving, kind, and supportive way. If I had come at you, either from a mentorship perspective or a friendship perspective, when we were getting that footing, and just lambasted you from that transparency side, from a harsh perspective, like, in all transparency, Austin, I noticed that your ego when it comes to women is not kind, and just pointed out to you all the ways in which I noticed that, we would not be sitting where we are today. Because all I would have done is triggered your ego, which I had observed. And then where would we have been?
Right.
But being able to instead use transparency to ask you, what happened that caused you the pain that has created the walls that you have put up? Tell me about that so that I can understand what created the foundation for where you are now.
Right. I appreciated that perspective and that type of practicality to the communication, because one, it felt like it created a safe space, which I didn't feel like I had. And two, it felt like it wasn't coming from a place of gotcha.
Yeah.
Or what has now turned into what's called cancel culture.
Yeah.
I think that whole concept of gotcha, or wanting to get you, or,
I'm better than you because I'm not there.
Exactly. Or, just like every other guy, like, wanting to put it in a category, because it's easier for us in many ways to just throw someone in a category when we don't understand the full picture. It's really easy for us. But that's easy isn't real.
Agreed.
And so I feel like one of the major transparency traps, if you will, is, at first when you started asking me those questions, my natural inclination, it wasn't even natural. I want to take that back because it was a learned habit to protect myself.
Yeah.
So I had learned, unfortunately, that when I was not being received in the way that I desired, that I would start to adjust who I am based on the person so that I could be received well. Thinking that I was being helpful, or I didn't really honestly I didn't really think about it too much. It was just probably my desire to be liked or loved kind of took over.
Became like a programmed response.
Yeah, it was the authenticity of a desired connection was there, but how it was done was not authentic. And so therefore there couldn't be transparency. And so, how can I be authentically myself if I'm not actually being myself? How can I present who I am when it's a completely different version of who I am? And then, for each person, it was different. And then it just became convoluted. And then through that process, I didn't know who I was. So when that question came forward, I didn't even know how to, felt like I was just throwing spaghetti on the wall, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I honestly, I don't even know at this point, because I've been so many things to so many different people, thinking I was either a good friend or what that person wanted in their life, because I desired inherently a connection. Just, we just all want to be loved. I mean, it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
So it was tough.
And so we navigated through that part, though.
Yeah.
Because when you didn't understand, and it wasn't like we were just in this field of rosebuds and lavender, and, it was challenging, and we had to have authentic conversations where, it was, okay, here's what I'm feeling. I don't even know what I'm feeling. I don't know why I'm like this. I don't know what is going on.
Yeah.
And your willingness to get to that core and to be transparent with yourself first and foremost. From an observational standpoint, there were moments where it seemed to break you down almost to the core. Your body had broken down. And then it was almost as though your spirit had to break down as well in order to get back to that place of healing and know who you actually are. And then your body actually built back up. As your spirit built back up, your body built back up. Mm-hmm. And then you didn't even need me as the mentor anymore. And that's when it shifted into a really deep friendship connection. And you started helping other people in your life from all that you had learned through that journey. I just walked with you. You did it. I just happened to have tools that assisted because I had gone through something similar. And then I watched you in full, we are going to use the word transparency until it becomes a drinking game in this, I don't care what, coffee, soda, whatever. But you were transparent with your friends about what had happened in your life, causing some of them to not be able to relate and walk away, and others to be like, how do I embark upon that type of a journey? Because I'm at that kind of a pivotal point. Can you talk about what that experience was like?
Yeah, I mean that one was definitely hard. I think the hardest part for me was the continuation of that transparency trap, where I did make some connections and people I did care about, but I actually realized I had nothing in common because I wasn't really actually that person. And I think that was really tough for me to kind of walk away and pull back. Um, and at the time, I didn't have the awareness or the communication skills to even effectively communicate that that's what I was doing. Kind of reflecting back now, it's very clear, um, But again, we do the best that we can when we, given the situation and what we're doing. That's where I was. That's I thought was the best. I probably could have handled things better, and I definitely would do things differently now. But at the same time, now I wouldn't even get myself in that situation. And so it's it's like, what can you do?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was honestly, it was tough. Pulling back. In many ways, it kind of felt like, um, if you ever use like a drill gun, for example, and I don't know if that's the right term, but my lack of experience in that, but I
You
do
can tell
know.
you're a master builder.
Yes, I'm a master builder. And you put in the nail, but it's not aligned right, and then you attempt to pull it back out, and strip the screw, right, and so you can't. And so I felt a little bit like that, where I was misaligned, but I was so deep in that, and it was like I felt, stripped, like there was nothing there, and I was like, I
Like you
can't
were
grab
screwed.
on. Yeah, like I was, yeah, and that's nice, and I just, and I couldn't get out. I felt like I was so, yeah, and I needed something to help me out. And one of those little tricks is that, hey, if you put a rubber band on there, and then you get is it electric screwdriver? I don't know what the correct term is. And then you can actually grip it in there and then pull it back out and then get a new one and then align yourself. And that's kind of what I felt like this process was like. And the reason why I'm saying this is because growing up, I had a golf trick that really helped pull me back. And it was a rubber band or a hair tie or something that would kind of put right on my wrist here. And when I caught myself veering off while on the golf course, whether it was a negative thought pattern or, hey, if I just had a bogey and I was, playing really well and I wanted to get back in the game, get back in the zone, I would kind of do that rubber band. So in many ways, it was like I needed that on a much bigger scale, like exponentially bigger scale
A
at
giant
every
rubber
level.
band.
Yeah, I need a massive rubber band to just slap me across the face and say, come on, align yourself. Be you. I know every part of me, body, mind, emotion, and spirit, was just calling out for me to be who I am. And I was giving every excuse not to, because I so desperately wanted to just fit in. Wanted to be liked. I wanted to be friends with everyone. I didn't want to cause issues. It was all from a place of love. I just didn't know how to express it. And I didn't know how to be it. I didn't know how to embody what I knew was possible. I really did know it was possible. I didn't have any example at the level that I was looking for until I met you. And that, when you say catalyst, it was to the very essence of that word, because you embodied a level of love, care, connection, and honestly, divine embodiment to a level I had never seen. And so, yeah, it's, as you say, your goal is to light the lights. Keep lighting, because it could just go on forever. And I felt like you ignited that within me, not because of anything external, not anything you did. You were inspiring because you are. And I desired that.
I feel the same about you. And that's really our goal in this transparency too, is to show any level of partnership what's possible. Because if we're hiding behind things, if we're not sharing, it doesn't matter if it's a friendship, if it's a romantic partnership, if it's our parents or our family members. If we have to hide parts of who we are in order to appease someone else, then are we building the kinds of bonds that we desire to build with each other? And is there another way? We can't answer it for everyone. We really can't. And we're not encouraging everyone to run out and start telling every secret that they have hidden away in their little secret vault to everyone who will listen, because there is a level of oversharing. And that's the point of this. Like what we shared with each other in that mentorship connection versus what we shared with each other as friends versus what we share with each other now in a partnership alignment is different. You know, your friends probably don't desire to know what you would share in a romantic partnership. But it is having that capacity to not hide away key parts of yourself that make you who you are, or doing what you were talking about, which is showing up as one person here and another person here just to be liked by people. Mm-hmm. Is there a median point there? A happy little space where you don't have to remember what you told this person versus this person so that you don't inadvertently mess up because I told this person I'm this and I told this person I'm this. It's not a way to live. So how do we get transparent and authentic enough with ourselves that we are consistent and we don't have to pretend to be something we're not in order to get someone to care about us? Because so many relationships do start that way, mm-hmm. right? Oh, I love cats. I don't care that you have 10 of them. Mm-hmm. Oh, we're 6 months into this. I'm actually allergic to cats. You know, so we have to find that happy balance. And I think that what you and I have and how we started through this flow, there was a little bit of that in the beginning, but we quickly talked through it and we were transparent as mentor connection. And that helped us a lot so that we didn't have to build upon that. And another thing that we always say to each other is, I don't need you. Which sounds so harsh, and people are like, why would you say that to each other? So would you like to dive into why we tell each other, I don't need you?
We say it because the next words are probably some of the greatest words you'll ever hear. Because I choose you. Thanks. And we talked a little bit about the energy of words in one of our last podcasts. And need and want come from that lack. But choice comes from infinite abundance. And what we have, how we feel, the connection that we share is infinitely abundant in love. Love is the core of it. And so when we say, I choose you, in every now moment, it isn't a promise or an expectation, which could lead to disappointment or misunderstanding or any of these things that we elevate because we think it's going to be one thing when it's actually another, and then when it's not that way that we envision it. No, it takes all of that out, simplifies it, but it also has the most vibrant yet pure form of love because it's so beautiful in its simplicity of I choose you.
In every moment.
In every moment. That means, and for me, it's a gift because it feels like I get the opportunity to renew love in every now moment. I get to feel love. I mean, we've known each other for 7 years, yet I feel like every day, like I get to feel that new love every day with you, which is so special. I didn't know that was even possible.
I agree. And it's amazing what just being able to look at each other and say, I choose you. You don't feel trapped in some relationship. And I know when we first talked about partnership and actually being a couple, you had fear around being a couple for a while leading up to that because of that sense of being trapped. And when you look at a lot of relationships on the external, it can seem like, it's kind of that sense that someone feels like they're trapped or they've been captured in some way. And at times, both of us, when we were talking to each other in full disclosure, we had felt like that in a relationship at one point in our life or another, where it was, I committed to this person, and so I'm going to stay with this person because I made this commitment, versus I choose to be here. And we both learned through that process that it isn't how we desired to embark upon our connection, because this connection felt so different from any of that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't codependency. It wasn't need. We're both completely independent, capable people who knew that could we make it on our own? 100%. We've proven that over and over. Are we enhanced and filled with so much happiness being together? Yes. So why wouldn't we choose that in every moment? I would not choose a life without you. I wouldn't. It just wouldn't make sense to me.
That's how I feel now.
That's me choosing it. It's not because I need you to pay my bills or I need you to... And that integrating life together, that happens as we're together. And that's a beautiful thing. So over time, as we've lived together and we've started to integrate that way, yeah, the complexities of that settle in. But it doesn't change the fact that I choose you. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're built on. And respectful communication is another key component of that to me. Like, I have observed just in general how communication can occur between people. And everyone has their way, and it's not a judgment as much as it is an observation. But I feel between us, I only choose to speak to you in a way that shows the gratitude, the honor, and the respect that I hold for you. So I do take a step back, even when emotions are heightened, to make certain that when I speak to you in that way. Because you deserve that. You deserve that love. You deserve that care. You deserve that compassion. And just because I'm having a feeling doesn't mean that I should just take all of that and go, blah, you have it now. You take it. Let me emotionally and verbally vomit all over you. Because that's not fair. And so I noticed you do the same. Like, we take that time. Not that we're perfect at it all of the time. We're human. It happens every now and then, especially when one of us hasn't slept the night before or whatever, things happen. But just even if we're talking and having those full-on conversations, being willing to sit down so you're not standing up and towering over me. We've had this, body language matters so much, and you are a tall dude. You just big all the way around, massive. And so when I'm sitting down in a teeny tiny chair and you're like towering over me, taking the time to sit, look me in the eye, having these one-on-one conversations where our hearts are on the same level. So that heart energy connects and we have a connected and transparent conversation. I think that matters.
Yeah, and that's part of the transparency is you being willing to share that with me, because like it never would have dawned on me. For reference, so people can know that you're not very small and I'm very tall or anything like that. No. I have a standing desk.
Yes.
And I typically like to stand. Amber does too, but in most situations, we're not standing at the same time. So you happen to be sitting, I was standing, and it happened to be occurring a couple times that we would, I don't know about arguments, but maybe minor disagreements or misunderstandings might be the best way.
Yeah.
But I was just talking to you because I was already standing.
And you had the earbuds in your ears.
And then I had, yes, because I plug in and I get zoned in and I listen to podcasts or music and I always have my earphones in. And so one of the benefits of, I guess no pun intended on the earbuds, but they have a transparency mode.
Yes.
So you can actually hear. But to me, I already don't have great hearing enough. So, I was standing while you're sitting, and then I'm talking really loud because I can't even hear myself. Uh-huh. And I never realized how it was coming off. To me, it seemed like we were just having a normal conversation. But here I am, like, projecting very well.
Yeah, very loudly. I can't control the volume of my voice.
Totally. And so, you being willing to step away and like actually just like, hey, can you please sit down? And, although you're not doing anything wrong, here's what's being triggered in me. And it would be great if we can if you can sit down so we're on the same page, so we can have that heart-to-heart connection, look at each other in the eyes, and so we're equal in flow and in movement. Once that was shared, it's like, oh, yeah, of course, that makes a ton of sense. Obviously it wasn't like I was intending to just like, I am man, I talk down to you. Like, no, not even all. I just happened to be standing and forgot to take my earphones out, those kind of things, like, which are a normal human thing, like. And so, but that's where like the practicality of transparency can be such a drastic and important part of conversation, because if you didn't say that, you could be holding that over my head and I'd have no idea what was going on, and we could be fighting for weeks, and it could just be building and building, and then I could keep doing it, I could keep triggering you, and then because you're triggered, then that triggers me, and then it could be this whole thing that could go on for months or years, which happens to a lot of people over something so small that could just be spoken very softly. You delivered it very eloquently, and you got out of your own way, which I greatly appreciated, saying, hey, I'm being triggered, that's not for you to hold, but here's why I want to let you in on why this is happening. And I would love it if we could do this moving forward, where we're sitting together, heart to heart, connection, eye to eye, because this would help me go forward. That makes so much sense. Why wouldn't I want to do that? When, to your point, you weren't like, I gotcha, or let me put you down, or throw a bunch of stuff at you just because I'm triggered. No, it was very loving and very respectful. And in turn, of course I want to respond well to that. And I feel like that's such a key aspect in this transparency, is it does kind of get you out of your own way, and it helps invite someone in so that what you're feeling is not alone. It's something that is like, hey, we're in this together, so let's find the situation that's best for both of us.
And just what was going on internally for me during that, right? Because it's not like I'm perfect in any way. It took me a lot to go, what is going on inside of me? Why am I feeling so? Because I know you And I know you would never in any way be forceful. You are the kindest, most loving soul I have ever encountered. So for me to feel triggered and like a aggressive way from you, which I knew was not what you were doing, I'm like, what is going on in me? Why am I feeling triggered?
Mm.
So I had to be consciously aware and transparent within myself to go, what is happening here with me, and not make it about you, because you weren't actually doing anything except talking. So then I needed to be willing to get out of my own way internally and not make it about you, because it could have been so easy. It could have really been easy for me to go, you're doing this to me, instead of for me to choke back my own ego a little bit and go, okay, no, you're not going to drive the bus on this one. Let me figure out what is happening and what is creating this for me. And in the conversation where I did figure it out, there was even a moment where you were like, why are you getting so distant? What is going on? And it was me actually stepping back, hearing what you were saying, but at the same time, kind of going, okay, feel through this and understand. That gave me the opportunity to observe your body language, which was calm and loving, but still like, I'm like this. And I'm like, okay, well, there's part of it. My head is tilted up. I can't feel you because I am a very sensory, feeling the energy flow. So I can't feel you. All I feel is everything coming at me instead of with me. And so there is that. And anybody who ever has felt talked at instead of talked with would totally cue into that. And so to feel that occur, and then to hear your tone elevated when you're, we're pretty soft spoken when we're just the two of us at the place. To hear your voice elevated, it was pretty quick then to decipher. But first, I had to get the frick out of my own way. And I think that's important for a lot of individuals to recognize too, is until we take that transparency internally and get out of our own way and are so willing to go, all right, what is happening here? What's happening inside of me first, then what's happening outside that's causing the inside. Then I can tell you what's happening. Otherwise, I couldn't have told you.
It's beautifully said. I really appreciate that. What was great is you were sharing all of that real time. It took a lot of practice to get to a point where you could do that. And so for anyone listening or watching right now, it's, that's not like maybe you hear this and it's something you desire to test out. It may not happen exactly that way the first time, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Very okay. And we both have put a lot of time and energy and effort into getting to a point where we can effectively communicate exactly how we're feeling, while pulling back our egos to express what ultimately a feeling is fleeting. It's not who we are. It's not our identity. It's an experience to help us understand who and what we are in that moment. And then how we choose to respond to that is another opportunity for us to understand who we are in that moment.
Exactly.
And so, be patient with yourself. And just as having a partner that was patient with me, I mean, that's all I could ask is be willing to be patient with your partner or your friend or your family or your coworker, whoever it is. Just as much as you would desire patience, and room for growth, please provide that for others, because that's something you did for me in spades since the first day that we met. And that spark to me allowed for that exponential growth opportunity. So if I didn't have that, I don't know if I'd be sitting here right now. I really don't. That is love in action.
It's amazing because when you give it and you show others the capacity that it holds, it's amazing how many people desire to reciprocate. And so you may need to be the one to hold the space for a while. It's not going to happen in a week.
Mm-mm.
Or maybe even a month. It may take a while. But if we're willing to hold that space for as long as it takes, I have found throughout my life that the majority of the people will rise to that occasion and will reciprocate. And before you know it, you've created an entire surrounding of people who are transparent with you, authentic with you, loving to you, will be there for you whenever you need. And so we create our own reality, if you will. When people talk about manifesting your own reality, you're consistent in the reality you're creating. It is what occurs. Because that is our world now. We don't live in some fantasy land. We are surrounded by people who love us, who support us, who see the vision that we see, because we have held strong and we have shown what's possible. And in our transparent flow of communication, which, things change too. Like when we talk about being transparent in our desires and in our connection and in all of the things that we're communicating out, part of that is being willing to say, oh, that's how I felt a year ago. Now this is the direction I'm heading. And it's okay, because you know what? I'm flowing with life. Life changes, I change, and therefore my choices change. I don't have to be stuck in what I said a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
I can change. And that's okay. And I feel sometimes we get so tied to something that we said we were going to do a year ago that we have to do that. And we don't. And so you've always been so understanding with that part too. So what else would you offer about transparency and how it flows in our connection in order to keep us so strong? I mean, here we are 7 years in. We've navigated some pretty interesting things.
Definitely. Yeah, I've got another example that I feel, just because someone probably listening or watching this right now, I was in that space where I needed practical. Give me an example. What does it look like? When I grew up in the age of the internet, right? And a lot of movies. What you see in the movies and online, and how people interact is in many ways over dramatized to create an experience.
Yeah.
But I think in many ways it was our only reference point. Definitely my only reference point, and remains that way. And so to see a different way, to see another way that isn't over dramatized, that is real and authentic and true, is a rare thing. And so that's kind of why I'm glad that we're sharing some of these examples, just to provide that reality aspect of it. And one of them was one of my fears, especially in the beginning. And one that I struggled with my whole life, was kind of the fear of abandonment. And that stems from a lot, and it took a lot to get over, for sure. And honestly, to get through is probably the better term. But I spent a lot of my relationships prior to you kind of pushing people away before we even had a chance to even be in any kind of long-term or commitment or anything like that, because I was not willing to be, I didn't want to put myself in a position where I would be abandoned. And so when we started the romantic side of our relationship and we took that extra level, it was hard for me to dive deep and be willing to be vulnerable and be transparent. And even though I shared these things with you and you knew, it was still, there's no way you would know how I would respond. There's no way that I still had things to flow through. And so one of those things that, one of my triggers was that when we would get, in the very few times we've actually had arguments, but in the beginning we definitely did a little bit more, I guess, collectively than we did, anything now. But that was mainly just because of my lack of understanding on how to effectively communicate, and then things that I was dealing with and flowing through, this being one of them, was that your flow would be that you would want to walk out of the room to collect yourself so that you didn't say something you didn't mean, or which happens to a lot of us. We just react and say it, and then we're like immediately regretful and all these things. And so it took me a while to comprehend that that's what you were doing, because I was so caught up in my fear that, if we got in an argument, you would just leave. I was like, here I am being vulnerable and open and wanting to share, and I'm finally committing to someone, and we have one argument and she's going to leave. Like, that was my fear. And it was completely irrational, because obviously knowing you, that's not even close to the case. But it took me a while to even comprehend what you were doing and to accept that that's how you responded to things, just because that's how, I want to stick in it. I want to, like, okay, well, why would you leave? Like, let's keep talking about this and let's get to the root cause. And so it's completely opposite of how I would approach it. And so being kind of in my own area, in my own ways, and not being willing to see what's around me or observe, because I was so caught up in fear, it took a while for me to accept and respect that that's your approach, and to receive it as it's the opposite of abandonment. It's actually a beautiful form of love, that you love me so much that the last thing you could think of would be wanting to say something negative or mean or unloving to me in any way, shape, or form, that you would actually remove yourself from the situation to collect yourself, to come back and then effectively communicate to me. In many ways, I don't think I felt like I deserved that kind of love. My own lack of self-worth and my own self-doubt, my own lack of self-love, I didn't know how to even receive that. And so engaging in transparency where I could express that to you, I feel opened the door so you could see what I was flowing through. And so I could invite you into where I was. And so that you knew that, hey, when I wanted to like stick in it, it was also my way of showing you, like, I'm not leaving over a silly argument, or, maybe where I have done that in the past. Any excuse to get out of something, unfortunately, I was in a place where I would take it. And so it was like my way of showing you, like, even in this little thing, I'm committed through and throughout. So I'm not going to leave the room because I'm in this. And so both were beautiful in their own way, but they just weren't meeting. They weren't conducive. Yeah, they were good. This isn't going to work. So I think having the time to express that and flow through those a couple times, and that's where holding space for each other and being patient with each other and allowing each other to feel what we felt and express what we felt, and then over time come to a way where we've adapted our approach so that we can be who we are, but still allow ourselves that room to feel and hold that love.
I think in those circumstances, and I really appreciate you sharing that one. It's funny because we're so far through that one
Yeah.
that I don't know that I leave the room anymore
No.
because there's no need. There's no balancing that needs to occur. We're very balanced in our approaches now. It might occur where I have to step back in the conversation and observe myself, but I don't need to step out of the room to do that. I can do it in the same space. And I think that is the progression of growth in a relationship, is that we start to get to know each other in a way that we don't have to take our own space again in order to take those balancing moments. We can do it real time.
Yeah.
But it is important to constantly take those and then be transparent and talk to each other. But the willingness to allow each other to have our own way, to not force each other into being the same way. Like, this is how I handle it, and so you should handle it the way that I handle it. Why don't you see what I see? I love the fact that you don't put me in that position. Not once, ever, in all the 7+ years that we've known each other, have you ever asked me to be you or to even be like you. And I feel that that's so, so important to the health of our connection. You love me for me, not who you believe you can form me into, or some niche I fill in what you needed for you. You love me for who I am and the expression that I am. And I love you for who you are and every expression of who you are. Even the ones I might not understand, like I am not a huge golfer, but watching you play golf is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. I don't understand it, but I love it. And I think that is another deep aspect of this. We don't have to understand everything about the people that we love. We don't have to shoehorn ourselves into being like that. We just have to appreciate the beauty that it is for them and connect on that level.
Amazing.
So,
thank you for showing that to me. We do understand it in a very practical manner in terms of like, okay, hey, we can look up at the stars and see the beauty of the stars, not understand the cosmos and the inner workings of everything. But it's because it seems so far away and so incomprehensible that it's like, yeah, of course I'm just going to revel in it. But because I think, people, we're so close to them and they're right there and they're, eye to eye, heart to heart, we feel like, well, if I'm like them, I can understand them. But I think you just did something beautiful, is just saying we don't have to understand through and throughout to fully respect, honor, and appreciate that being for who they are. Just like the cosmos, the beauty and appreciation is in the unknown. It is in the fact that it's more than we can fully understand. And that's what drives us to desire to explore and to connect and to continue to seek to understand. And I feel like that I have with you exponentially, that I don't understand everything you do, but I do in many ways revel in it, from how you connect with our clients to how you connect with your family to, even just how you make a vegan lasagna. It's like art. Everything you do is art, and it's purposeful and intentional. And it's hard for me to understand how someone can have so much intention into every single thing that they do, but it is inspiring to a level that I had not experienced. And it, in the most loving way, it pushes me to be better. And for that, I'm forever grateful.
I feel the same. And
not going to do it.
Not gonna happen. And what I hope this does is it shows people that it's not like we started out in some massive lustful connection where, hey, we're just gonna be together and we were together 24/7, or things were, it was a slow build. It was a slow build, and it was beautiful. And every step, I wouldn't change any step of what happened between us. But every step was purposeful and meaningful because we allowed it to be. Other people who are in our shoes may have breezed by this type of a connection and moved on to something else. Intention is important, and being willing to talk and share and sit in the moments together. Anything else you would like to be transparent and bring forward before we wrap up here?
Just happy. It was wonderful getting to be in a place where we can talk about the special connection that we have from a place with a full heart and complete happiness. That's what else could I ask for?
I love you, baby.
I love you.
And we love all of you, and we're so grateful that you joined us on another episode of the Heart Leader podcast, where heart and mind align. You can catch us every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time for an episode. Next month, we are moving into the theme of compassion, and we will have a toolkit that is all around compassion calisthenics, working out that compassion like you would work out any other part of your body. You can find that in the Heart Leader Toolbox, which you can get for free by going to swivera.org. Until next time, we look forward to seeing you in the Swivera community. You've been listening to the Heart Leader podcast with your host, Amber, where heart and mind align. Tune in weekly as we take a deeper dive into what it means to be a heart leader. Ready to take the next step? Join us and over 1 million people worldwide who've united in creating this global movement of love. Become a heart leader for today and tomorrow. Learn more and connect with us at swivera.org.